Hey everyone. Okay, so in our next lesson here, lesson 4, we kind of just briefly introduced the concept of regression in lesson 3 when we were solving polynomial equations. And we kind of said it was the last one we were going to deal with, but we were going to deal with it on another day. Well, welcome to the other day. Yay. Okay, so I said this in the last video, but just to kind of set us up for what's going on here. Um, Normally, throughout your high school career, you've been asked to work with a function. And essentially, with that function, you can build points. So you could plug in 1 for x and get out what the y value is. You can plug in -2 for x and get out what the y value is. You can plug in 15 for x and get out the y value. And every time you do that, you're creating a point, and then you stick all those points together and you get the shape of a line. Okay. Regression refers to going backwards. Okay, in the English language, that's what regression means. So when we're talking math, we're going backwards. So instead of generating the points from an equation, we're going to generate the equation from the points. Okay, and this is all calculator active. This is what your calculator is going to do for you. So if you don't have your calculator, you should pause me right now and go run and get it, because we're going to go through a lot of calculator steps. Anytime we do something on a graphing calculator for the first time, it can feel confusing. It can feel stressful. Okay. It's not. I absolutely promise once you do it 2, 3, 4 times, your brain will click in. You'll know where all the buttons are. Everything's going to go well. Okay. This is actually a very straightforward thing once you've given yourself some time just to practice it. Okay. But again, the first time we do it, it's going to feel a little weird. That's totally okay. Okay. I am going to show you how to do this on a Casio. That's my predominant brand. But I will, as I do that, be giving instructions to TI kids as well. So just make sure you're listening to the right instructions. I don't want to further confuse you. Okay. All right. Life is one big word problem. When given an equation, it is easy to graph and determine x-intercepts or intersections of graphs. When given a series of data values, we can use our calculator to create a line of best fit and a function that models that data. We create a line of best fit by performing a regression. Okay, so for each of the following scenarios, draw a sketch that approximates the data given. Now, I'm actually not going to hand draw any of these sketches. I'm going to get right into the regression on how to do it. But you will notice, if you're following along with the book, you will notice that there are 3 different tables, and underneath those 3 tables, there's a spot for you to just sketch what that data would look like, just based on the numbers that you see on the table. Okay. You can pause me and go ahead and do that. No biggie. Okay. What I want to focus on is now how to get my computer or my graphing calculator to actually come up with the equation and graph the equation that it came up with. Okay. So I'm just going to start with the very first table that you see, which is this guy here, the number of books sold versus the revenue. Okay. And I'm going to walk you through how we do each thing. Okay. Now, I'm actually going to, this first one, although I give you all the steps, I'm going to switch back and forth between an actual graphing calculator that's on my computer, so that I can kind of do it with you. Okay. So for this guy, the first thing we have to do is put this stuff into our tables. Now, I've already given you a picture of what that will look like. To get there, you're going to press on a Casio menu 2. It'll say stat. And on a TI, you have a button that says stat. So you'll press stat and then option 1 for edit. Okay. And then you're going to enter the data. So here I am. Just let me switch my screen here with you. And we're going to move over to the calculator. And I'm going to do exactly that. So I'm going to go menu, and then you see option 2. And you see my list 1, list 2s, list 3. Okay, I'm going to input that data. So we have 25, 50, 75, 100, and 200. Then you can just right click over and it'll jump up to the top of list 2. So now I have 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 4,000. Okay, so that's what it should look like. Okay, now I'm just going to stay on the graphing calculator for a sec. I might as well just show it all to you, and then I'll go back and review the steps with you. Okay, now that I've got the calculator here. Now you're gonna want to see the dots. Okay, so to do that on a Casio, you would press graph and then just press graph 1, and it will automatically adjust your windows so that you see those dots as best as we can see them. So it'll give you the optimal window. Okay, now on a TI, you do the same thing, except what you want to do is you want to turn plot 1 on. So second function of your y equals button, this is the TI kids. Second function of your y equals button, you'll see it says something plot, stat plot, I think. And then you'll go and highlight number 1 and turn it on and just set it to be scatter plot, okay? Now, TI kids, you'll have to manually adjust your window settings in order to see the same sort of picture. But just to give you a hint, TI kids, I'll tell you what my window settings are right now. They are now -4 to 230 for X, and then -666 to 5,166 for Y. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to exit out of there, back to here. Okay, now we're going to calculate the regression. Now, based on our dots, we can see that this is probably going to be a linear regression, right? Our 3 options right now are linear, quadratic, or cubic. This does not look quadratic or cubic, so we want our calculator to perform a linear regression, okay? By the way, you will never have to make that decision on a diploma. It will say, this data models a linear regression or something like that to tell you what type of regression to do, okay? So on a Casio, you'll notice that F1 says calc. So we're going to press calc, and then we're going to do a linear regression. So that's your X right here. This would be a quadratic over here where it says X squared, and this would be a cubic over here, okay? So press F2, and then we want AX plus B because that's the form we're used to doing it in, so F1. And then you get this screen, okay? So what this says is A is 20 and B is 0, and this is the way the formula is set up. So essentially it tells us it's the equation y equals 20x, okay? Stay with me there for a sec, Casio kids. TI kids, let's get you here. You need to perform a linear regression, and to do that, you're going to press your stat button again, but then you're going to right click so that up at the top, the word calculate is highlighted, and then choose linear regression. It should be option 4, I think. It'll say LINREG, okay? Now, TI kids, as you're doing that, you'll notice if you have a newer calculator that it will ask you where you want to store your equation. You want to store it in Y1, okay? Casio kids, same thing here, but what we're going to do, you'll notice on the screen, you have F5 right now, says copy. So we're going to press copy, and it's going to take us right to Y1. Don't worry about the equation I have there. I'm just going to hit execute. And what that did is it stuck the equation right into Y1 for me. That is super awesome, because usually what happens is on these questions, they'll ask you to do a regression, but then they'll ask you questions based on your regression equation, and you don't want a rounding problem. So what you do is you copy it right into Y1. Then you can answer the rest of the questions based on the actual non-rounded equation, okay? All right, so now I want to actually show you that graph. For all of you, your window settings should already be set up because we set it up to see the dots, right? But for Casio kids, we're going to go back to menu and we're going to choose graph. Now, one little thing for Casio kids, what I want you to notice is, hey, look, that equation's there. It put it in when you said copy, okay? But I want you to notice it's not turned on. Do you notice that this equal sign, it's not highlighted, okay? So you actually have to turn it on, and you do that just by pressing F1, which is your select. And now you can see it's highlighted. And then if I draw, there's my beautiful line with the window settings I've already done, okay? TI kids, you would just hit graph, And because you've already put it into Y1, it should graph and look just like that. TI kids, you'll still have the dots showing. And then when you don't want the dots to show there anymore, you just go second function Y equals and turn that plot one off. Okay. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna just review those steps one more time with the PowerPoint because I've given you some pictures in the PowerPoint. So I'm just gonna go back to the PowerPoint. And this is where we had left off in the PowerPoint. So we headed to our lists and we entered the data. And then this is us entering the data, okay? And then we went and said, we checked out our dots. And again, I've given you just little hints in the PowerPoint to remind you whether you're a Casio or a TI, how you're gonna do that step. Okay, then we did the regression and we made sure we copied it into Y1, okay? And then we looked at the picture and we got that picture and we've got y equals 20x as our equation, okay? Yay, that was fun. Let's do it again. Okay, so these ones I'm gonna go a little quicker because I've already kind of gone through all the steps. So now you're just practicing all the steps. So what that means is you might wanna, if you haven't yet, you might wanna be pausing along the way just to make sure you have time to put the stuff in. I'm not gonna do each one with you anymore. I'm just gonna show you those pictures that I showed you on the last exam, okay? So first, you gotta go and put your stuff in. Now, when you go to put your stuff in, you can just overwrite what's there. So even though there's stuff there, if you just go to the top of list 1, you can just start writing 0, enter 5, enter 10, enter, and it will just overwrite what's there. Okay. You can clear your lists if that really bothers you. On a TI, you do it in your memory. You go second plus, and then there's an option that says clear all lists. On a Casio, you would just go and delete the lists. So I can show you that, Casio kids, if you want to. Again, you don't need to, but if you want to, who am I to say you can't? So if I go back to my lists, okay, if I want to clear that, I just go to more options here, F6, and I just say delete all, and I just say yes, F1. And then it just clears the list for me, okay? All right. So put those in. I got to switch back to my PowerPoint. There we go. And you should then, when you go to look at the dots, which is Casio kids, that'll be graph 1. You should get a picture that looks like this. TI kids, you would just have to turn that stat or plot 1 back on again. And looking at this picture, probably we want to do a quadratic picture here. So I'm going to do a quadratic regression. Now, the same thing is true. You still go into calc if you're a Casio kid. The difference now is you're going to choose the x squared, like I just showed you when I did the linear one. You're going to choose x squared instead of x cubed. Or sorry, instead of x. And then a TI kid, you want to choose, so you'll still press stat and then go over to calc, but now you're going to choose the option that says quad regress, okay? So QUAD REG. And then these are the numbers you should be looking at for the value of A, B, and C, okay? And that's when it's written in the form AX squared plus BX plus C, okay? Copy that into Y1. Remember to turn Y1 back on, Casio kids. And you should get a picture that looks like that. And again, here's the equation, and I'm just rounding the equation there to the nearest hundredth for purposes of answering. But remember, this is the equation, because I copied it, this is the equation that has no rounding errors, okay? All right, awesome. Then we're gonna head to that third table, which is this guy. So we're going to try it again. We're going to go back into our lists. So menu 2, or if you're a TI kid, you're going to press stat enter and put this in. Check out your dots and you should see a picture that looks something like this. Okay, now the way these dots go, I can clearly see we're going to have a couple turning points here. This is going to be a cubic. So I want to do a cubic regression. So on a Casio, you're still going to go calc, but then you're going to choose x to the 3 for your regression. TI kids, you're going to choose, it'll say cubic regression. Okay, still at stat and then over to calc. So for that guy, you should get a 1, a 5, a 2, and a -8. Okay. Okay, and then you're going to copy that into Y1 and take a look at your picture. You should get something that looks like that. And the equation y equals x cubed plus 5x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay. Yay. So hopefully we're feeling okay. Hopefully this doesn't feel too bad on us. Okay. Now, I want us to go back to that first scenario, the one with the books. For the first situation, using your calculator, determine the following. I'll just hide for a sec so you can see that question. The revenue earned if 124 books were sold. So that's an X value, and I'm asked to calculate the Y value. For both Casio and TI, all I got to do there is the trace button. Sorry, I had another thought going on in my head. So I just press the trace button and then type 124 and hit execute or enter. And then that should give you 2,438. So that's telling you when X is 124, your Y value will be 2,438. Okay. How about if 550 were sold? Now, same sort of question here. The difference is 550 is not going to be actually in your window right now. My window only goes up to 222. Okay, so what that means is you're going to have to go to your window settings and you're going to have to up it. Okay, up it to more than 550. Your calculator can't calculate something that's not in the domain of the screen. Okay, so you're going to have to adjust your window settings, and then when you do that, you should get $11,000. Okay, and then let's go the other way. How many books would need to be sold to earn 3,200? Now, the 3,200 that you're given, this is a Y value. So now you're being asked to get the X value if you know the Y value. Okay, on a Casio, you actually have a program in your GSolve that says XCalc. So you'd go GSolve and then go to more options, F6, and then you'll see XCalc. And then you can just put the Y value in that you want, and it'll take you right there. For a TI, the easiest way to do it for a TI is to put the 3,200, put your Y value into Y2. And then what's going to happen is your graph will graph two different lines, and you're going to solve the intersection point of those two different lines. So to get the intersection point on a TI, you'll go second trace 5, enter, enter, enter. And so that should give you an X value of 160. Okay, 160 books. Okay, so that is our lesson on how to use our graphing calculator to do regression. Now, I feel like we did all this really quick, but we've gone through all the steps a couple of times together. So what I want you to do is just practice, 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 okay? The way you're going to get really feeling better about this, especially with the specific model you have, is you just want to do it. You want to make sure you're getting the same numbers as me and make sure everything's cool. Okay. So we have your homework listed there. Give this a try, check your answers, ask me lots of questions, and know that you're going to survive. We actually do a lot of regression throughout this unit. So like right now we're doing it on linear, quadratic, and cubic, but we'll also do it on logarithmic, we'll do it on exponential, we'll do it on sinusoidal. So there's a lot of times we get to practice this, okay? All right, well, hopefully this helped. Hopefully you're feeling okay. Thanks for kind of coming along for the ride and practicing along with me. I'm grateful to be able to do this with you. And thanks for sharing these videos with your friends from other schools or from other places in the province. It's great to get this stuff out there, so I appreciate that. And as always, thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. I super duper appreciate that. All right, friends, you got this. You can do this, okay? Go practice and have some fun. We'll talk to you soon.